Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We now begin our parallel track for the GRIHA Summit, 13 March, second day, parallel track on Transform to Perform. With decades of focus on the new building stock, India is now poised to unlock the inefficient performance pattern of existing buildings. TERI and USGBC have forged a strategic collaboration to work towards transforming performance of the existing built environment. This session shall witness launch of the alternative compliance paths for India, developed for LEED existing building operation and maintenance rating system version 4, jointly by TERI and USGBC. Experts, consultants, and officials of USGBC and TERI shall share their experiences on the tools and platforms developed to address issues around resource optimization in existing buildings. I would now like to invite Ms. Millie Majumdar, Director, Sustainable Habitat Division, TERI, and Secretary Cum Treasurer of the GRIHA Council to present the opening remarks. Ma'am.
On behalf of TERI, USGBC, and the GRIHA Council, a very, very warm welcome. And, you know, the enthusiasm is quite apparent because we have, I think, overflowing hall, and that amply demonstrates the fact that this is a very, very crucial need of the hour. That we need to transform our existing buildings to make them perform to standards that are internationally acceptable. TERI and USGBC, we have signed up a partnership on several strategic issues around moving India towards, not only India, this entire region towards having more greener habitats, more sustainable habitats. And through different tools, techniques, which both the organizations have perfected over time. And as a part of the partnership, so this is the first initiative that we are jointly launching today, which is LEED for existing buildings, and we'll hear about it in more detail. And the other forthcoming one is the dynamic Plaque. Again, we would hear about this. And let me formally welcome you to this, discussion over 1.5 hours, wherein we will also hear about how these alternative compliance paths have been developed for LEED for existing buildings, and which are particularly applicable for India. And the team, the USGBC team and the TERI team, they have worked over past 5 to 6 months to make this happen, working across different time zones, very dedicated set of people. And, you know, it has indeed been a very, very exciting journey for all of us. And however, it's very important that it performs in the Indian condition and it is able to give the desired benefits that the buildings want to accrue. That is very important. So we look forward to participation from the entire stock of buildings, and so the building owners, the corporate sector, government, and other building owners need to come forth to test this system to see how it performs in giving the desired objectives. With these words, again, a very warm welcome, and I'm also looking forward to this discussion and taking forward this initiative jointly with USGBC in the Indian market. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. May I like to invite all the panelists for the entire session once in the beginning to please release the publication for the India-specific ACBs. Mr. Mahesh Ramanujam, Ms. Millie Majumdar, Mr. Kamal Meattle, Mr. M. Silvarasu, and Ms. Deepa Satyaram, please, if you could join us at the dais. I'd now like to invite Mr. Mahesh Ramanujam, Chief Operating Officer, U.S. Green Building Council, and President, Green Building Certification Institute, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, Apur. Definitely, it's pretty exciting to see a full hall, and I was telling Millie that this is a great start for LEED existing buildings in India. So, as Apur noted, I'm Mahesh Ramanujam. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of U.S. Green Building Council, and also the President of Green Building Certification Institute, the organization responsible for offering credentialing and certification services for people and projects around the world, including for LEED. I'm pleased to join here today with USGBC's President, Roger Platte, and I'm going to welcome Mr. Platte to India, his first trip. First, I want to thank you for your continued leadership in advancing green strategies in India. And second, thank you for joining us on a Friday afternoon. Huh? Friday the 13th. USGBC and TERI have a shared vision for market transformation. We both recognize the greatest opportunity in transforming the built environment to make it sustainable and to leave this planet to be a better place for our future generations. We also believe in the triple bottom line, the benefits that come for people, planet, and profit. Market transformation, a change of this magnitude, cannot be realized overnight. Change has to be tackled one building, one neighborhood, one community at a time. And then when you start aggregating all these changes, what you realize is we are changing the world. What we want are safe, healthy, inclusive, smart, productive, efficient, equitable, sustainable, responsive, resilient neighborhoods, communities, and cities for all. And that's what USGBC and TERI are about. And that's what LEED and GRIHA do. Most of you are familiar with LEED. It's been 15 years. We are on our fourth version of LEED, LEED v4. Historically, this is how we have spoken about LEED. LEED applies for new construction, neighborhoods, commercial interiors, homes, existing buildings, healthcare, core and shell, retail, and schools. But thanks to your creative vision and your efforts in applying LEED as a framework for various building types and configurations, that today we can confidently say LEED works for all spaces. The numbers tell the story. 3.9 billion square feet of certified space. 27,146 commercial projects, large and small. 181,000 homes participate in LEED. GBCI, the certification body of LEED, certifies 1.85 million square feet a day. This number has not changed a bit in the past 5 years. We have been so consistent. But I know that we can do much better than this. Around the world, we have 200,000 LEED professionals. And thanks to our partnership with TERI, we have got 508 GRIHA evaluators joining the base, and more to come. LEED is successfully used in 150 countries and territories. In the past 18 months alone, we have added 12 new countries where each of these countries have certified their first LEED project. Pretty impressive. As you are well aware, LEED is developed and supported by green building practitioners, which is you. We have one LEED implemented around the world. And as we started growing internationally, we realized two things. One, we recognized an incredible amount of talent and intelligence around the green building movement present around the world. Second, it was very clear that we had to shift our strategy from control to connection. What we mean by that is that instead of us being the centralized intelligence, we wanted to be the centralized nervous system that connected smartly the distributed intelligence that was available around the world. Hence, the LEED International Roundtable was established with 35 member countries, with India being one of them. We have one LEED. LEED is global. This means we can compare buildings all over. LEED building in India in Delhi should be able to be compared with a building in New York, because they are built of the same standard and the same rules apply. But we also know that we need to factor in the regional considerations, and so LEED has to support regional requirements. And all ideas get implemented locally. LEED needs to work locally, which means be it standards, translations, product specifications, or even culture has to be factored into LEED. So the LEED International Roundtable ensures and helps us to maintain LEED as a global, regional, local rating system. That's our strategy. Let's go further into the lead numbers. When you look at this slide, you will see the new construction leads the way, followed by commercial interiors. But if you see the square footage, it's an interesting trend. Existing building trails behind the new construction almost closely. What does it tell you? An opportunity that we cannot miss. Now, if you look at this slide, you can see that the new construction and the existing building codes, the top two lines, the white and the yellow, are tracking pretty closely. The growth rate has been pretty predictable, except for if you ignore the spike for a minute. So it is clear that the existing building market opportunity is bubbling around the world. Now let me shift the focus to India. As the population continues to grow, the consumption of electricity by buildings has increased at a rate of about 13.2% in the past decade. India's urban population was 285 million in 2001. Now, according to BEE, it will be 473 million in 2021. Not too far away, just 6 years away from now. This population shift is going to cause an increasing amount of stress on natural resources and goods per capita. Additionally, rising incomes in India are widening the supply-demand gap for resources like energy and water. Increasing concerns about climate change are forcing cities to reevaluate and think about their infrastructure preparedness. The air pollution in Delhi is grave. Delhi has been crowned as the #1 polluted city in the world. For a frequent flyer to Beijing, to me, it is very disheartening. Because last year I gave a speech in the Beijing Congress saying that Beijing is the most polluted city in the world. And it looks like where I'm going, I'm basically polluting those cities. According to a 2014 WHO report, India has the world's highest death rate for respiratory chronic diseases. And it is estimated to kill about 1.5 million Indians every year. Now imagine with increased air pollution what this number will be. Pretty bad. But India is not alone. Many of the developing world is facing similar challenges. These complex environmental challenges may feel overwhelming. However, we already have an elegant, practical, and economically promising solution in place: green building. Green building practices offer solutions to a number of these environmental challenges. Green building can be a boon for a flagging economy or could be a response to social issues. Green buildings save energy. The savings also directly address India and world's climate change issues. Buildings are responsible for 50% of the carbon emissions around the world because they use electricity produced from coal and other fossil fuels. So as per the Global Green Building Market Report released by McGraw-Hill Construction in 2012, both in terms of financial efficiencies and environmental impacts, energy use reduction tops the environmental reason for people pursuing green. 72% say it's an important environmental reason to engage in a green building. Green buildings also reduce water use and keep our waterways clean. And water use reduction of green building is more important today than ever. 28% of the study respondents cited that to be the #1 reason for pursuing a green building, up from only 4% in 2008. Access to clean water is a fundamental requirement for any development, any economic development around the world. So we don't want to waste one drop of it. Firms also report 8 to 15% of median operating cost savings in new construction projects and 5 to 7% increase in building values. In case of green retrofits, firms report the operating costs decreased by 9% in the first year and up to 13% over 5 years. For new green projects, the expected payback period is 8 years. For green retrofits, it's 7 years. Existing buildings offers a greater savings potential than your new construction. But on the contrary, to date, a greater emphasis has been put on new construction because it is easy to plan and implement sustainability in new construction. it is not easy for existing buildings to be greened for various reasons: financing, level of effort, technology, policy, products, and most importantly, our mindset. But it is possible, and it is the biggest opportunity that we have before us today. In fact, LEED for existing buildings in India has done very well. There are 132 registered and certified LEED EB projects in India, representing 48 million square feet of space. 60% of them have achieved LEED Gold. LEED for existing buildings in India tend to certify at a higher level than the rest of their global peers, 88% versus 49%. India is the 4th largest EB market in the world for LEED, next to China, Canada, and United States. Taking into account this momentum, in July 2014, USGBC and TERI entered into a strategic partnership to focus on 2 areas. One, LEED for existing buildings. Second, building performance. With LEED for existing buildings, our goal was to make LEED certification, LEED EB certification, easier for investors and property owners to pursue upgrades and retrofits. For building performance, we know what is not measured cannot be managed. Whether it is a newly certified building or existing building, our goal was to provide a platform to measure and monitor building performance and ensure they are operating at their certification levels. Today, it is my privilege to make 2 announcements. One, TERI and USGBC, as Millie pointed out, has successfully completed the LEED for existing buildings guidance. And we hope that this will help you to implement your LEED EB projects with much ease. And this technical guidance expands on the current LEED existing building rating system, but factoring in the regional requirements and most importantly, the India-specific requirements so that the certification process itself becomes easier. Second, we are excited to introduce the LEED Dynamic Plaque. LEED Dynamic Plaque does 3 things. Number 1, provides a solution to measure ongoing building performance. Number 2, ignites awareness. It makes tenants, visitors, building occupants, anybody, to be aware of the building's performance at any point of time, in real time, and to ensure they can take actions that can improve building performance. It is about behavioral change. Third, it provides a common language to compare buildings with one another. So in India, I'm pleased to share that you can now see the LEED Dynamic Plaque in action at 2 places, Parpur Business Center in New Delhi and at Group 10 Technologies in Gurgaon. With 132 LEED existing buildings and 2 dynamic plaque, I believe we are starting today's journey on a strong footing. And I believe with TERI's partnership, we will be taking on this grand challenge and the opportunity of transforming the built environment in India. Because existing buildings hold incredible promise. Many older buildings have poor air quality, and you have experienced them. They waste energy, they waste water. Now, LEED existing buildings in India will help us and help you to implement effective strategies, and LEED Dynamic Plaque will ensure the effectiveness of those strategies on an ongoing basis. We often say the greenest building is the one already built. It can take up to 80 years to make up for the environmental impacts of demolishing an old building and constructing a new one, even if the resulting building is extremely energy efficient. Every building has a story. Let's not tear them down. Let's improve them. Can you imagine a world without these iconic structures like the Empire State Building, Taipei 101, the Sede Central, the headquarters of Ka Foscari University of Venice? This building in particular is 550 years old and is the oldest LEED certified building on this planet. Or the LEED Platinum ITC Windsor, my favorite, with its majestic and imposing white edifice reflecting the Regency architecture, replete with fluted pillars, Georgian windows, and a period furniture. The very air achieves a certain languid, unhurried ambiance strongly reminiscent of the Raj era. Let's not forget, after all buildings are existing buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a brief presentation on the work that has been done and the ACPs that have been developed as part of the partnership. So this presentation would cover the alternative compliance paths developed for LEED EBOM version for India and the operationalization of LEED dynamic Plaque in India. The ACP development, ACP is alternative compliance paths for specific credits identified in the LEED rating system. They were split into two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The phase 1 work got finished in January 2015 when the LEED steering committee approved the first phase of these ACPs. They have been approved for the following credits: the prerequisite for minimum indoor air quality performance, credit on thermal comfort, credit on interior lighting, and credit on renewable energy and carbon offset. So I'll take you through them very briefly, not giving very technical information, but very briefly what these ACPs are all about. For the minimum indoor air quality performance, the intent is to contribute to the comfort and well-being of building occupants by establishing minimum standards for indoor air quality. For the mechanically ventilated buildings, the original clause required the spaces to meet minimum outdoor requirements as per ASHRAE 62.1. In the alternative compliance path proposed now and approved, the projects can demonstrate compliance with the National Building Code and the Central Pollution Control Board's National Ambient Air Quality Standards as an alternative to ASHRAE 62.1. For naturally ventilated buildings, again, the minimum outdoor air requirements were as per ASHRAE 62.1 and CIPC. In the alternative compliance paths, National Building Code, Bureau of Indian Standards, Special Publication 41, and the CPCB, National Ambient Air Quality Standards, have been included as an alternative. For thermal comfort, the intent is to promote occupants' productivity, comfort, and well-being by providing quality thermal comfort. The original clause required buildings to have a permanent monitoring system to ensure ongoing building performance to the desired thermal comfort criteria as per ASHRAE 55. In the alternative compliance path, the National Building Code recommended thermal comfort standards have been accepted and included as an alternative for ASHRAE 55. And India-specific adaptive comfort standards are currently under development and about to be published. Those will be evaluated and included once that publication is complete. In interior lighting, the intent is to promote occupants' comfort, productivity, and well-being by providing high-quality lighting. In this case, in the second option, which has about 8 strategies to evaluate the quality of lighting inside, there is no alternative, but an additional 9th strategy has been added for India-specific projects. And that strategy requires minimum lux levels to be achieved inside the building. So in this strategy, projects in India would do the audits of lux levels inside a space to ensure that the occupants achieve good visual quality, good visual comfort inside the spaces, and the amount of light available meets the minimum national requirement as per the standards. There's one credit for which ACP was developed as part of the LEED 2009 version work that has been carried forward to this version as well. That credit is for renewable energy and carbon offsets in performance. The ACP allows projects in India to purchase RECs sold on power exchanges that operate REC trading with approval from the India Central Electricity Regulatory Commission with additional parameters as an alternative to green E-certified RECs. Also, as part of the booklet that has been released, there were several credits which were identified as credits which require additional guidance for India, additional information, additional clarifications, etc. All of these credits have been identified in that list, and additional guidance has been provided so that it becomes easier for consultants and experts to implement these credits in the projects. Whether it comes to site management or protecting and restoring habitats, heat and reduction, water efficiency, building commissioning, or purchasing, there's additional guidance provided too. All of these and several more as we move along to the phase 2 of this work. And the point that Mahesh covered earlier, lead dynamic plaque. The lead dynamic plaque is a building performance monitoring and scoring platform for LEED certified projects, providing annual LEED certification and global benchmarking. The plaque displays a LEED performance score, which reflects the measured performance of the building across 5 categories: energy, water, waste, transportation, and very, very crucially, human experience. The LEED performance score corresponds with the globally recognized LEED certification levels, which are certified, silver, gold, and platinum. Currently, the TERI and the USGBC teams are working to see if there are specific adjustment factors required for emissions and consumption numbers so that the tool is better customized to reflect Indian buildings' performance. For more information, you may contact Gopalakrishnan P. or Puneet Mittal, who are leading the Lead India Hub. And with that, we come to the close of this part. I'd like to now invite Mr. Kamal Meattle, CEO of Paharpur Business Center and Software Technology Incubator Park, to address the gathering on adoption of LEED existing building rating, as well as the LEED dynamic plaque at the Paharpur Business Center. Sir.
Mr. Roger Platt, Millie, Mr. Mazumdar, and friends, I'd like to specially recognize in this audience Mr. Rohan Parekh, who headed the sustainability issues at Infosys earlier and now runs a company of his own called Terrasol. The reason I mention his name is that this is one company which achieved millions of dollars worth of savings on existing buildings. And so the question is, in our own case, why have we got ourselves certified? Why have we gone in for a dynamic plaque? And what is the future? So I'm going to deal with these three issues. I think Mahesh has already covered the macro background of why and what has been happening in this country and outside. Let me say this. We had to begin with a building which is now nearly 30 years old, 29 years old or 28 years old, built to government design in Nehru Place with nothing to say in terms of facade, in terms of orientation, in terms of what we needed to do. It was exactly given to us by DDA as to how to construct the building, and our company did the construction themselves. Now, given this situation, when we started this business center in 91, the thought was at that time itself, how can we, coming from an engineering background in terms of cooling towers and so on and so forth, how do we apply our thinking to a building, and how can we improve the functioning of a building? So the journey started, and we started thinking, why not get evaporated cooling, free cooling or evaporation as cooling method. So we built an underground tank at that time, which was not the standard, fortunately, which came in useful for firefighting, etc. later on. And the system was built in such a way that the duct sizes and all were to also do air cooling or evaporative cooling, not just air conditioning, because you can get away with it for several months of the year. As we progressed, we kept on making changes in terms of light bulbs, in terms of energy efficient tube lights, hopping from copper chokes to electronic chokes to then CFL type fittings and now LEDs. And so the change has been continuous. The proposal is that you can wait and say, 5 years from today, I'm going to get a laptop or any kind of equipment or an iPhone or a phone, and I'm going to wait for this phone. Or you say that I get the best available today, which is value to me, and you keep changing this with time, depending on the use and depending on whether it is useful to you and it can pay for the cost of acquisition of that particular phone. So we took this path of keep on making changes as we roll along in terms of technology to be able to get us to reducing energy and also having some certification. So the certification which we chose was again LEED, and the reason at that time was different. It was that was the only certification available for retrofit. And that is the reason why we went for this particular certification as USGBC and not the IGBC at that time. As we moved along, we started thinking that green certification is great, but builders build buildings. For example, in Noida, you get extra FAR for building a green building, but does it remain green? And how do you measure that, yes, it continues to be low on usage of water and so on and so forth, which we know. So then came this dynamic plaque. So the debate here was, should we get a dynamic plaque, and is it really going to be good for us or bad for us? I'll tell you why. The dynamic plaque, one of the negative things could be, if you're running a business center or hotel, if the customers would say, oh, you're using less energy, so reduce your price. And that is the reason for the cost reduction. The other is that, is that building operating better, including whatever those 5 points and whatever needs to be done, which meant a lot of explaining and making our clients understand the meaning of this dynamic plaque and what does it show. And what happens here is every time you enter the building and get out, you know what the number is. And if it is lower, you start asking questions as to why is it lower? What are we doing wrong? Have we missed out on a survey? Or are we using too much water? Or are we using too much energy? Have we left some windows open? Or what is going wrong? So it gives an online reading of what is happening, as Mahesh mentioned, that what you cannot measure, you cannot manage, and hence you got a real-time measure. There's another monitor which we have which shows CO2 levels outside, inside. So you know online whether what is happening. Similarly, with air pollution, you've got the US Embassy website which is refreshed every 1 hour. You know what the story is. For example, today we talk about air quality. Delhi's AQI index is 184 and Beijing is 38. 38. New York is 12 and Anand Vihar in Delhi is 536. So if you had a building in Anand Vihar, you'd have to worry about this 536 and make sure that you get it right. I believe in a very simple way that the dynamic plaque is the way to go. If you have the confidence and the real intention to build a green building and keep it green. But if you would, on the other side, not like to show, you will want for branding and selling, you want to sell a new building and somehow to the customers and then get a society to manage it and then say, the society did not do anything, so what can I do? I built a green building, but that's where it stops. So don't go for the dynamic plaque, stay away from it, okay? So the only reason for doing it is if you have the confidence and you can communicate to your customers as to what this is all about. Just putting it up there means nothing to anybody. So you have to communicate. Next, I would say, as far as this business is concerned, my view is that green building certification, including dynamic plaque, is pretty much, as I explained, a high school degree. You have to have it. If you don't have it, you are in big trouble. Okay? So it has to be the de facto standard. If you don't have a green building, you, in my opinion, in the years to come, you may not be able to even rent it or sell it. But then you have two paths. One is to look after your customers or the occupants, or do some kind of like a training program, a vocational training program, and be a great carpenter, fitter, or whatever it is, go another path. The path to graduation, in my opinion, is absolutely wellness, it's Delos, which is again handled by USGBC, not the subject for discussion this afternoon, but that is the path, which looks at occupants. It looks at their happiness. Bhutan talks about gross national happiness. This particular standard talks about you. It does not talk about less energy and less water, and hence the owner or the developer is making money out of you. But I think it is focused on your well-being. And I think this is extremely important, especially in India, because the green building standards do not include details of air quality. Okay, talks about CO2 levels, it talks about VOCs, but it does not talk about PM 2.5s less than 15. Now, how do you get PM 2.5s less than 15 when they are 500 outside? That's the challenge. How do you keep people healthy? How do you create an awareness that there is a need for wellness and deloss? So that's the path we are moving on, and hopefully in the next few months, we should get certified for wellness. And I think that is the path. So A, green building certification, Delos certainly cannot ignore it, and then get to wellness. And that is where you really add value to the occupant. And finally, it's the occupant. I think it would be great if in the future we find that the customer does not accept a building which is not certified, A, green, B, Delos, and of course a B with a plaque, and the third would be the Delos. So that will be the grading rather than A class, B class, C class, or whatever class. If the grading should be whether you are wellness certified or you have a plaque B class, and C class is, well, you're just somewhere around just being certified. And of course D and fail if you are nowhere on the parameter. Well, with this, let me say this is our path and we've benefited. We have give you numbers. We have saved 200 rupees per square foot per year in energy bills. So you can chase a number, you can have it verified, checked out. This is the number which we have. We have come down from 865 kVA down to something like 250 kVA maximum demand in 2014 July, which is the worst month or in the monsoons. So I think there is something which saves you money. And every human being, in my opinion, is driven by greed and threat. And green buildings come Delos and come the dynamic plaque, and then Delos answers these questions with respect to threat, which is a health threat. If you're not healthy in a building, who cares? You may have a lot of savings of this or that, or you may be waste recycling, but if we are going to get sick, then what's the point? Sick in the India sense, because we have a major problem with respect to PM 2.5s and ozone, these two factors. And I'll just stick to this, and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We now move into our panel discussion. May I invite all the panelists for the discussion to please take their seats. Mr. Kamal Meattle, Mr. Mahesh Ramanujam, Ms. Millie Majumdar, Mr. Alvin Narona, Executive Vice President, Projects, ITC Limited Hotel Division, Mr. Dheeraj Wadhwa, Assistant Director, Commercial Applied Business, UTC Carrier, Ms. Deepa Satyaram, Executive Director, EN3 Sustainability Solutions Private Limited, and Mr. M. Selvarasu, Director, Lead Consultancy and Engineering Services India Private Limited. Over to you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear? Yes. Okay, fine. We have a great set of panelists here, and instead of spending time and explaining to you as to who is who and what have they done, I can only say it'll come out in their own presentations and you'll know better. We have nearly 35 minutes, out of which we'd like to leave a fair amount of time for questions. So I would request each of the panelists to make a short remark or a couple of ideas in terms of A, their experience, B, what do they think? For example, let's start with Millie. Uh, on one end, uh, what do you think you need to do to convince people, on citizens of India, I would say, rather than builders and engineers, for demanding green buildings, dynamic plaque, leading to wellness? What do you think really needs to be done in terms of creating this awareness? And of course, then, how do we reach out to the students of engineering, students of architecture, architects and engineers, and convince them of the benefits and the tools which they should have or possess to be able to talk to their clients?
Thank you. Lot of questions actually. So, and having being in this space, both in terms of operationalizing a rating system, taking it to field, and being influencing different policies in this, we find that there are different drivers towards green buildings, and of course policy mandates, incentives do play a major role. However, any system is as good as it is implemented, and the honesty of implementation is very important. But if you also go out there in the field, we find that the people who are actually implementing, they are not, their capacities are not built. So right now, the crowd whom we are focusing on in terms of preaching about greener buildings are the converted, who are more knowledgeable, who work in offices, but out there is a lot of knowledge that needs to be communicated to be able to take it forward. That is one thing, because there are simple things which you can see on paper, but when you just talk about the ECBC implementation, and when you talk about, say, things like compliances, so there are endless number of compliances which again contractor doesn't know how to do. So there is a lot of this gap which need to be bridged to different capacity building programs, and also people who can help it. So it has to be in several tiers, which has to happen, and it also has to start at the curriculum level. Currently, if you see, our architectural curriculum does not entail mechanical systems, electrical systems. So architects are not empowered to take decisions which are technically correct in order to facilitate green building. So that is one. And I just wanted to make one more point, here, while taking forward rating systems, it is also important to understand and appreciate that in each country the rating systems perform differently, how people accept it. I mean, working with USGBC was a very unique experience, and I thought I'll just share it. So coming from US, so there the USGBC philosophy is that you make the rating system, you push the standard and you let the market transform in order to adopt the rating system. But in India, what we try to do is we try to make it more and more simpler to have more numbers into the rating system so that we have a large stock. So there is a very difference in philosophy and what we are trying to achieve. So unless we bridge the gaps, then, when we apply a rating system, many of the things remain on paper. It doesn't get translated to field. So this is something we have to crack somehow and make things happen, because we are talking about performance. So transformation to make buildings perform, this is something which we need to bridge, and we are working towards it.
Thank you, Millie. We'll come back to you. Mahesh, with your international experience, and it is said, think global, act local. Okay, what are the challenges and what are the opportunities as you see them for the Indian market for such buildings, which are existing buildings?
I think Millie kind of touched the topic about challenges. We talked about challenges. In India, I believe there are practical challenges, particularly before the release of the current guidance. The ASHRAE standards and others were considered to be cost prohibitive. That would be the first least common denominator that everybody goes to. Second thing is the motivation has been a challenge. Third is, from our perspective, we ignore our potential. Based on what I've seen from the outside world's point of view, we continue to ignore our potential to be able to lead us in the global market. It's not about the Indian story alone. It's about how do we become global leaders. And from that perspective, I see a variety of challenges with mindset, at a broad level. But as far as opportunities are concerned, what I believe is the real opportunity is leadership. Follow the leaders is what we say around the world. So you are here, sir. I will quote a small story for all of you. In 2009, in Chennai, I met Mr. Kamal, and he said, Mahesh, you need to bring lead EV to India. It only took 5 years in official way. But at that point of time, he said, you must make my building the iconic building, not because it's his building, but because it is a 25, 30-year-old real old building, existing building, sitting right here in Nehru Place, in the nation's capital, to be an example, to be an inspiration. And he demanded that he be given a high school certificate at that point. And, and he did graduate. And he did graduate with probably A+ scores. That's platinum. That's the highest we give now. And he's now pushing it for net zero, I think, hopefully, sir, in the next 5 years. But the point is about leadership. Now, when we look at ITC, all the building stock is about leadership. And then I counted about 132 buildings. And when we look at the country. So when I say opportunity is here is for leadership, which should translate into saving energy, saving water, saving waste, and look at the air pollution, and everything else that has got either a monetary impact on us or health impact on us. And I think by taking a careful calibration of it, we can convert these challenges into opportunities itself and go further and faster. And then the most important part I want to leave you with is that we are fourth in the world. How difficult it is to get to number 1 with the building stock that we have. That should be easy.
Thank you. Turn to you, Mr. Arora. As you know, you've seen lots of ads of ITC. All their hotels and every hotel is certified as platinum. My question to you is that, has it helped you in branding, marketing, cost savings? And what's your story to your board? Now they have said you must have all the buildings, all the hotels as LEED Platinum. When you get back to the board, what's your story? What do you tell them? Was it a good idea, or is it a bad idea? And if it was good, why is it good? And what is the way forward for you?
Yeah, good afternoon. Frankly, I don't have a choice of going back to the board and saying that I can't make a building a platinum. That is a given now. It is a default condition that every hotel that we construct, be it a 7-star or be it a 4-star, if it has an ITC name on it, it has to be a LEED Platinum. That is the attempt. It's close to you. Yeah. Okay. But the story was not the same when we started off this exercise. When we started with the exercise, there was a lot of questions as to what is LEED Platinum, what is this additional investment, and there are more reasons why we couldn't do a thing than how we go about doing it. But once we completed this particular first project, which was a headquarters in Gurgaon, where I also operate from, and people experienced what it was. And today, I heard you speak about quality of indoor air quality and the wellness, well-being inside. Honestly, within the building, we do say, let's go for a stroll within the building than more going for a stroll outside the building. And we haven't experienced much increase in our cost of construction to achieve a platinum than what it was before. It's only that we learned doing it the right way right now. We learned to simulate something on paper properly before we went blindly based on any consultants or vendor's recommendation. And today, I think it is not only an engineer, but every player within the team knows what's a platinum and what is expected out of him. And when to this question of this EB, before we went in, what it is ITC, even without platinum rating or pursuit of green building, we believed we were up there, above the satisfactory level, but not, of course, to the eve level. So therefore, the cost difference for us to make that extra effort was not very high. Now, this is not good news for ITCS because we had so much savings, but I would think for a general persons who want to do it, that gap is that much more potential to earn or potential to save. So there is that much interest and incentive to do that. And we hope we take this pursuit of ours further. We are going on international, and we are studying. And not only for LEED, I must tell you, when we were doing this hotel in Chennai and now we're doing Calcutta, we are also got the GRIHA 5-star rating for the Chennai hotel in addition to the platinum. And we are attempting to also do this for the Calcutta also. These are both very huge projects, the largest hotels and other things, etc. So we hope to achieve that there. Thank you.
You said that you had no choice as far as the board was concerned, so you had to do it. But what would your message be to other people who have hotels? Should they go in for it, and would they benefit from it?
Let me put it this way. We went in for all our existing building hotels for a 7-star rating, all 7-star hotels except for LEED Platinum. No exaggeration, our weighted average kilocals per square meter before we went in was 770 kilocals per square meter per day. That was our energy consumption. Today it is at 660. And 770 itself is very good. So I'm saying that average in the hotel industries would probably be around 850 to 900. So depending on who is starting from where, but if they can reach to 660 kilocals per square meter per day, as what we are right now, there's that much potential, which is about 20% in, we call it the HLP cost, there's energy cost. And in water, it is between 28 to 45% savings in water from what we were before we got platinum rated and post. So we are comparing with our own performance, and the energy cost being what it is right now, there it is. So today, actually, you go to the board and say that I need so many crore rupees to do the following, very less questions asked, because it's been proven to them that there is the savings that is coming down.
Thank you. Deepa, you've been in this business for many, many years, so you understand it very well. What do you think are the key challenges and opportunities, and especially now moving to the dynamic plaque?
Firstly, I think that the dynamic plaque is a great tool for building operators and occupants, because one of the biggest things that has always been a challenge is how are green buildings performing, and are they continuing to be green throughout their life. And many times when we discuss even with facility operators, they know that they don't have enough tools that actually tell them where their building is on a real-time basis for them to be able to improve. So the dynamic plaque, a great opportunity for building operators to first understand on an ongoing basis where their buildings are, how they're performing, and to be able to do improvements in areas when they do slip. You know, many times after many years you come back and then you realize that the building is not performing as it's supposed to be, whereas this should be done on an ongoing basis, on a daily basis. So this is a great tool for building operators and facility managers. And what it also does for the management and for most of the existing buildings is most buildings have a year-on-year plan for retrofits and improvements to be done. And this gives a structured way in which you can plan. In many cases, I've known building operators doing something because they have a budget and they need to use it, otherwise they don't get a similar budget the next year. And it doesn't necessarily go into the most effective measure to be used. It's done pretty much towards the fag end of the year because I have to use up the budget, failing which it goes back into the common pool. So the tool actually will tell building operators really where am I leaking, where are my leaks, where are my huge white elephants, and use those budgets, even what is there, in the most effective manner to start with, and to plan for future budgets in a more realistic manner so that over a period of maybe 3 to 5 years, buildings can genuinely achieve energy efficiency, water efficiency, and other aspects of improvements.
Thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Salvarasu. What is your experience, and specifically with respect to, of course, certification of existing buildings plus the dynamic plaque, but more so, is there any differentiation between buildings which are owned and operated by a company or the owner versus buildings which are built by somebody and occupied and rented out to somebody else? Would there be a difference in thinking, and how would you deal with these two different types of thinking?
Yeah, I like to highlight 2-3 points, including what Chairman was saying. Luckily, I was part of the entire movement right from beginning when IGBC built. I know how we struggled. And also, Ms. Narona aware that 2 years I was with them for the ITC Green Center. If you look at 2 years, I was just calculating how many days I was in Gurgaon, how many days in Hyderabad, more in Gurgaon than Hyderabad. There was a real challenge there to doing the project first time for LEED certification, for any product for that matter. I will just answer the first one, is the dynamic plaque. It's a good tool to measure the performance. I have been thinking for the last 10-15 years, interacting with USGBC, IGBC, that when you look at the current certified building, when you get into the building, happen to visit many certified buildings where we have worked, and really heartening to know that how the building is operated. It's a big question mark. When you apply the rating for the certified building, I don't know how many of them really qualify. That was a little bottleneck in this country. The reason being that no man's baby once you get the certification. Particularly, he was asking about the builders developed building. Handed over to the operation team, they don't have ABCD knowledge of the building, how it has been designed. And second, when the operators coming and operating, they don't even allow people to get into the building when they occupy the building. And they have their own set of rules and system to be implemented. It become inefficient sometimes. So dynamic plaque for the owner-operated building is very easy than the builders developed building. There's a big bottleneck. And looking at the dynamic plaque, to be successful, what I feel is there should be a synergy between the LEED NC, easy to do it for LEED NC building, and there should be a clear transition from LEED NC to the dynamic plaque. I think there should be a link, the rating system to carry the message and strategies. Easily you shift from LEED NC, once certified, to dynamic plaque. That link needs to be completely closed, so the dynamic plaque will become automatic, rather than bring a new tool later part and demanding the owner to implement. I think that needs to be really studied, strategized, so that things will be easy to shift. And I feel the dynamic plaque should be made mandatory after 3 to 5 years of operation of LEED, NC, and EB. So recertification may not be really required for a certified building, but the dynamic plaque should be automatic. And definitely for LEED CS project, we need to have a different strategy. It's not so easy to implement LEED CI and LEED CS. I think that needs to evolve with a clear strategy. It is not so easy to create. It is not a priority right now. Look at many corporates. It is not a priority for any corporate. Look at the budget every year. The green is not part of the priority, or energy efficiency. Then it comes to operation. Operation team always looked at differently in the building, that they are not going to earn money for the any business. So creating a budget for operational building, particularly in energy and green, taken a back seat. So what I feel is more and more in India, looking at the Indian context, is we have to first bring a business case, like a Baharpur, ITC. These are the good business case available to demonstrate and trigger the mind of the CEOs and CFOs, particularly CFOs. Very much required. They should understand the business potential, and that energy and green should be part of the portfolio or the priority in the budget. The next is we have to trigger the mind of the operation team, train them. There are a lot of low-hanging fruits. 30-40% saving is very easy for any building in India, which is built about 5 years back. So we need to tell them that we have to train them, educate them, and tell them this is the opportunity for you. And it's not so easy to convince operation team going and convince the management. I think this is a strategy we should have in India, to train operation team, at the same time trigger the mind of the people with the business case, CFOs and CEOs, And we need like another 100, 150 CEOs like Mr. Kamal. Then it takes up. So very, very critical to trigger these two agencies involved in the process, and the greens will be part of the priority for every year. Then this will become very successful. Thank you.
Now let's move on to Mr. Wadhwa, Dheeraj. Would you like to speak about what are those ideas or products, and what do you think that companies like yours can contribute to, call it green certified building A and B, to making that difference on the dynamic plaque on a day-to-day basis, upwards in terms of points? How do you influence that?
Okay, before I answer that question directly, I'll say that I am personally very happy to learn about this dynamic plaque system, largely because if you observe the energy consumption on any building, you will see the air conditioning and the elevator per se will consume close to about 50% of the energy in any building, roughly, on an estimated basis. So what happens is, when you design a building with certain parameters, with certain design conditions on the air conditioning equipment per se, and if the building does not perform, the first place where the lightning goes is the manufacturer. So now, with this dynamic plaque coming into existence, the building owner takes the responsibility and the ownership in a way that the building has to perform for which it has been designed, one. And when it does not, then he comes back to the manufacturers like us and say that, are you contributing towards this inefficiency or not? Please check. So there is a way by which you are checking. That's very important. I mean, these guidelines which has been developed, I am very excited to see. This will give a customer a direction to work on and observe and see whether the building is performing in line with the design or not. That is where we as manufacturer come into light. Now I'll answer your question which you asked me, that how we contribute towards. So we as United Technologies, we have got multiple products and we operate in multiple segments in terms of the product lines, contributing towards a building, air conditioning equipments, elevators, security products, building management systems. So we contribute largely towards these products. I mean, we've got equipments which are high energy efficient equipments on the air conditioning side. We've got elevators which generate power while coming down. So you use every opportunity. Now how does it come? Customers like ITC challenge us at times. What more than the design what we have with us, or what better equipment do you have beyond the design what we have with us? So these customers challenge us, and then we have to come up to their expectations at times with products and also with solutions. I mean, you have to go a step beyond products. You have to design the solutions at times. So these designing solutions is maybe a hot water is good with a boiler or with a heat machine. I mean, one of the examples I'm quoting. So we have also graduated and moved from a level of designing only products to designing solutions, one. Second, we today also, not today, but for the last so many years now, we have developed team globally. And India also we got a team which works on existing buildings, whether they are operating in line with the design or not. We carry out audits and then we recommend certain interventions to the customers, that these are possible interventions which can help you improve the efficiency and bring it to a certain level. If the need be, we can go up to a performance contracting levels as well. So that's how we have also scaled ourselves up in line with the expectations of the customers, trying and meeting the challenges. At the same time, we have to stay abreast in the industry as well. That's all from my side. Thank you.
I think if you look at existing buildings, it came up in that inaugural session. There are two types of buildings. One which are very old buildings, and the other ones are buildings which were built maybe in the last 10 years with glass facades and things like that, which are perhaps more difficult to retrofit than the very old buildings. I'll give you a couple of examples. I live in a house which have got 18 feet high ceilings. The walls are about 1 meter in the width. And it's easy to cool that, it's easy to heat that particular building. It requires very little energy, it's all day lit, etc. Built in 1931. But if you look at a brand new building with the code also saying you cannot have a ceiling more than 3 meters, I wonder where that code came from. because if you have a tall height and then you have ventilation, then the hot air rises and disappears from the top, and you don't need to cool the 18 feet, you just need to cool the 6 feet or so, depending on the height of the individuals who are in that particular building. So there are these issues, and if you ask the lawmakers, they would tell you that if we allowed 18 feet, you'd probably put another floor in between, so you lose that advantage. So I guess the question is, are we making rules for whom? Are we making rules thinking that everybody is crooked? Or are we taking the chance, like the credit card company, saying there will be some bad debt, but we allow you to use the credit card and that's fine? So there are some regulatory issues also in terms of specifications as far as buildings are concerned. But that's another subject which can be discussed. I think we have roughly about 12 minutes left, and I would request each one of you to start asking questions. Please keep your question, identify your name and company, and also keep your questions short and not make long comments, and the panelists would answer them. The first question is right here. Now we need some microphones here, so would you please, somebody hand over these microphones quickly, and if somebody can also be at the back, it would help.
Good evening. I am architect Sanjay Pal, proprietor of Sanjay Pal and Associates. It's an architectural consultancy firm from Calcutta. Now, we are doing maximum government buildings, and where CPWD and PWD rules has specifications are to be followed. Now, for all these green buildings, has all these specifications incorporated in those CPWD or PWD specifications or not?
Millie, would you please answer this?
Yes, TERI has worked with CPWD in a project, and we have revised all their specification to be compliant with ECBC and the GRIHA requirements. So that is updated and available online. And we also have revised their plinth area rates, which forms the basis for the basic estimation. That is also available. In addition to that, CPWD has also issued design guidelines for enabling energy efficient and greener buildings, and that is for CPWD, and some of the PWDs are also taking this work actively, and we have worked with the Gujarat PWD to this effect to make similar changes. So it is there, it is available.
Hi, this is Rohan here. A question: when will the wellness parameters get incorporated in GRIHA?
Very soon, in version 4. Very soon, yes.
Yeah, this is Dr. Rath from Engineers India Limited. My question would be to Mahesh. Mahesh, given the present context of Make in India, manufacturing hub in India, do you see any major role of USGBC in this sector, where some improvement can be done for energy saving?
I think the role of USGBC in India is already established through LEED, right? We have brought LEED in. LEED is, and now this new partnership with LEED with the existing buildings, and you already heard a product manufacturer say that he's excited about the LEED dynamic plaque. So I think we are creating opportunities for Make in India directly. But let's not forget, we have created an ecosystem of consultants. We have created an ecosystem of architects and designers and a variety of players who have driven jobs and innovation around this space. So technically, what we are doing affects the greater ecosystem.
Also, can I just add, because when you're talking about greener buildings, it is also a collective effort. It is not essentially manufacturer-driven process. So that collective effort of enabling high-performance building has to come from within the integrated approach to green building design. So that probably Make in India cannot, have it as a process, but I think collectively as consultants, as engineering consultancy organizations, we have to take up that effort. That's very crucial.
Yes.
I am Manju Yadav from SP Bhopal. I'm a landscape student. I just want to know, is there any chance in LEED or GRIHA to increase the landscape-related points so that people will be, give more importance to nature?
Hina, do you want to take that question?
Currently, if you look at the importance given to the landscape is good enough, you ask me. A lot of changes happen in the building sector, particularly in the landscape segment. I don't think we require to have a more weightage. I think we need to go more on energy and water. Landscape, I think we have reached the stage, it has come out very well. I don't think we require more weightage for landscape. Because don't look at only landscape per se. Landscape lighting and water. All should be
Yes,
looked
they
at.
are also related actually. It's not the, like...
It's already covered. I don't think it's required to improve further on the landscape. A lot of improvement happened last 10 years.
Yeah, to really answer that question, you should Google sustainable sites and look for a rating system that we are currently working on. That's coming
yes,
for the next rating system.
Sites we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Mohit Kumar. I'm Project Director for Architects 49 Group Thailand. My question actually is for Mr. Mahesh, specifically since he's widely traveling and seeing things happening around the world. India is a peculiar, in a state of peculiar situation right now. We're adopting and we're changing every day. What are the things that you think are happening around the world which make LEED get absorbed faster? In the country context, are the laws making them go faster? Is the community getting educated faster? That's why it's being absorbed? Or where does India stand? Are we better performers, slowly learning? Or what can be done in a longer term to improve the situation to get LEED accepted faster here?
I think you asked a variety of questions there, so I'll try to be precise about it. I think it's very important to understand while we are constantly encouraged with LEED being recognized by regulation, LEED is a voluntary rating system. It's a leadership standard. The L in LEED is for leadership. So there is something about the market that we have seen repeatedly around the world that people are excited to do LEED buildings. Not because it's mandated. I don't think people will do it if it is mandated. They do it because it creates and solves a greater purpose. You know, Mr. Alvin Narona said this today. He said that now doing this is not beneficial to, doing LEED Platinum is not beneficial to ITC, but he said it's a baseline. When he said that, what it meant is that 10 years ago, it was a leadership advantage. Now it is no longer a leadership advantage, so he has to pursue something stronger and faster. That is a trend that leaders around the world have deployed. Second, how LEED grows in each of these countries is something that I'm very fascinated by. What is that LEED is carried forward by LEED building practitioners. So today we have Deepa, we have Selvarasu here, and I'm sure there are 20 more partners that are sitting there in the crowd, and all of them are leaders on the ground. So we don't push LEED. We have created an infrastructure that is owned by the community, and we are supporting the leaders to make the adoption of LEED go faster. Third, from an overall worldwide context perspective, today I showed you India is on the 4th on the list for existing buildings market. That trend is reflected in the new construction also, in the commercial interior also. So India is not, as particularly sitting in Washington DC, I'm very careful not to speak the negative aspects of India, because I think we have a little bit of a syndrome of talking down on India. I think we should talk up about India, because we have different challenges, we have different constraints, but every time I come into India, I see progress. So I'm going to leave you with a message saying that we're doing great, we can do much better, and do more LEED for existing buildings in India.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with questions?
Hi. This is
Lots
Neha.
of them there.
This is Neha from Autodesk. This question is particularly for Millie and Mahesh. What is your perspective on building information modeling's role in moving towards greener buildings? And do you think that technology adoption or the BIM process adoption can achieve, can act as a catalyst to get GRIHA ratings or LEED ratings?
So as you know, you should know already that we are already working with Autodesk on integrating the BIM modeling into LEED online. So it's a pretty straightforward connection. What we have seen is that repeatedly the challenge is how to basically export and import the data and make the whole process automated. That's where the biggest challenge comes. So I think I can even answer for GRIHA on this topic, right? As long as there is an underlying tool technology that will make this seamless transition of data from BIM to the BMS to the dynamic plaque to the rating system, I think all of us in this room will be very happy. So that journey continues, and that discussion is continuously happening with your labs in the United States, and we must get it done at least in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and just to add, I think there is a common philosophy also in place. Like through any green construction, you are trying to make the buildings leaner, reduce wastages, reduce time, etc. So I think BIM as a platform enables all of it, and that is also the inherent principle of green. So it is very well aligned.
The question is to Mahesh. What has been the role of LEED in US in bringing low impact strategies as a measure being adopted now in regulations? Because currently in India nothing exists around low impact strategies, even the consultants are not aware of. And if you must have noticed, any of the LEED existing building projects have not gone for that particular criteria. I mean to say low impact strategies such as sustainable urban drainage systems, which are very essential for urban fabrics in neighborhoods. So those we discussed even earlier and there were no solutions. So I just want to ask, because now in US I can see there are certain legislative changes and an enabling mechanism by EPA introduced. So has LEED played a role to accelerate the process, or how is that it has been? So that there is some learning for the country as well.
So as far as India is concerned, I may have to rely on Millie's help here. But as far as United States is concerned, LEED has played a role on it, right? Because in US we see a very interesting trend. We have building code, and then we have LEED. So we aspire to keep LEED above building code, because we believe building code is minimum and LEED is above. But what happens is that because of the way we release our rating system, there has been times where the building code was better than LEED. So it's a continuous influence cycle. It's a virtuous cycle, and our efforts with LEED has direct and indirect impact on legislative and other policy-related requirements in the United States and even other countries. As far as India is concerned, I think we are just getting started, but Millie may have a better perspective.
Part of my team, so
okay, so it's in your hands right now, actually, so that you get it done.
We'll take the last two questions. There are two hands raised, and that's that.
Hi, I'm Shruti from ProEn Consultants. I wanted to ask you, we are talking about energy and water, but why we are not talking about fire and life safety also as a point, a credit in this system?
You're right. This is a big discussion that always happens with my friends in United Laboratories. They always say to me that why are you not including safety? And I think that's coming. It is the big word that called human experience. I think Apur very carefully introduced this terminology called human experience, and he said it's very important. And I think all these aspects will get.
Yes, because life of a building also, like fire and life safety plays a very big role in deciding what is the life of a building.
Agreed. And that's work in progress right now.
Okay, I think that's what I mentioned. The next step is Delos, wellness. So we are moving in that direction. That's for occupants. Yes, somebody at the back there.
Yeah, my question is to Millie. Hi, Millie, is the NBC being revised towards GRIHA or the green guidelines?
The NBC now has a new chapter which is under publication and which has been collectively developed by several experts and consultants, which is Chapter 11, Approach to Sustainability.
Yeah.
So that has, most of the principles of green sort of integrated as part of it and cross-referenced to the available standards and codes.
Okay.
So it is under publication, I guess. I mean, it went through several reviews
and where does GRIHA as the 3-star GRIHA rating stand as a mandate with respect to CPWT, etc.?
It remains.
It will remain.
It remains.
So with
so
the
that
USGBC,
is separate. That can't be part of NBC. So
no, I'm saying with the USGBC, there would be no change per se in terms of the system and the entire.
No, of course
okay.
not. Of course.
Fair enough. Okay. Thanks.
Good evening, sir. And madam, I'm Jiraj from Chennai. This existing building being remodeled for the rating system obviously will include a lot of wastages. For example, you remodel this false ceiling, you will have a lot of wastages to be recycled. Does this rating system include that life cycle also before rating, or are we leading it as a hidden cost for the economy?
Apur, you want to answer that? Yeah, go for it, Deepa.
It actually gets addressed as part of the rating system. And firstly, the remodeling or the retrofit, most of the retrofits that we address are improvement retrofits in energy and water. It doesn't require you to change your interiors or even your facade and basic civil and interior finishes. But if you're anyway changing them for other reasons, even that waste management and recycling is in place. In fact, it even has a policy for future alterations and improvements, how it has to be done and what measures have to be addressed. So it's already as part of the rating system that has been addressed and needs to be followed. Again, the existing building requirement is not one time that you do it green once and get your LEED EB certificate. That's also a ongoing thing which is throughout the life of the building. So these policies, it requires as a first step to change the way, in many cases, how you're operating the building to better and more efficient ways. Put in place a policy, internalize a process, so even if people change, the process and the practices remain.
Well, with this, since there are no more questions, thank you so much for attending this program. I hope there is some learning from it and some takeaways for you. I would say that even in a retrofit building, I don't think it is only one engineer or one architect or one somebody who's involved. Like building a new building, you've got to get multi-disciplines involved in your project of redoing a particular building to make sure that you get all the components, the low-hanging fruits at least, taken care of. So you got to think holistically and not only one item on the agenda and work towards that. So you can have a program as to how you're going to accomplish it, how much time it's going to take. As an example for us, we did not shut down our building operations even for one day in all these years because the cost would have been so much that we could not afford it. So one of the main reasons was the building has to be retrofitted on an operating, ongoing basis without any day loss of revenue. So the answer is it can be done. It's all about the will to do it, and the will is driven from threat or greed, and in our case, both. If you go back and see that I got sick 20 years ago, and that was the reason I looked at air quality, found a way, found a solution for myself, and then of course applied it to everybody else. And as far as greed is concerned, you save 200 rupees a square foot, so that's bottom line. Same thing with the hotels. If you save 15-20% of your energy bill, it's not a small number, it pays for lots of salaries. Moving on to, again, I keep on saying now, wellness. If you improve human productivity, if you improve productivity by 10 or 15%, for people, for occupants, what does it mean? What's your salary bill? And what is 15% of that salary bill? Then you'll start thinking as to, does it make sense or not? So I think in terms of the need, there is a clear need, but I think most people don't understand that need, or they think that it's so complex that they go to a consultant who tells them it's too complex, which is also quite natural because when you make a deal, you tell one person it's too difficult and you tell the other person that, well, you are in bad shape. So like selling, you match make between the two. So whatever it is, it's not complicated, it's easy. And but there has to be a will. There are enough good people, there are enough good consultants, there are enough good suppliers of products and services. There is no shortage of them in this country, but one has to find them. And I think, again, I refer to Rohan Parikh. He should tell his story about how many $1 million he saved and what did the board tell him and how did they appreciate him in terms of what he made or what he did for the company? So that's what it is. It really is beneficial for the owner or for the customer and for the occupant as we move ahead. So it's a win-win-win-win scenario. With this, let me once again thank you and all the panelists here for your presentations and for all the answers which you gave for the questions. Thank you so much, and join me to